Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Pilot Principle. Now, this is the podcast where we take a look at just the first episode of a series, okay? Not the whole shebang, just episode 1, the pilot. And then we use it to decide if we should watch the entire series. If you are not already doing so, then don't forget to subscribe, share, and rate this podcast because I review a new show more or less every week. Now, on this episode of The Pilot Principle, we are chatting episode 1 of Netflix's new limited drama series, Adolescence. Stephen Graham and Ashley Walters star in this visceral one-shot crime drama about a 13-year-old boy accused of murder. This series had me at one-shot crime drama. I love a single take, shot, sequence, project, whatever. And if you don't know what that is basically when the camera keeps rolling with no cuts. And this can be done in a static shot, so where the camera is put in one position and doesn't move. So think about something like Steve McQueen's Hunger. There's a 17-minute single take shot in that. Or, of course, it can be done over the course of a whole movie, and you can think of something like Sam Mendes's 1917. Now, the only person who loves a one-shot madness more than me is probably Stephen Graham. And you'll understand why I say that in a minute, because right now we're going to run through the credits. So, the pilot synopsis tells us, police break down the door of the Miller's family home. Teenage Jamie is arrested and taken in for questioning, but insists he's done nothing wrong. We have an episode length of 65 minutes and a series length of 4 episodes. And I don't know, 4 episodes? Last week we looked at Prime Video's Fear, and that was only 3 episodes. I don't know if this is a commentary on the critical state of the UK television industry, or if it's just smart storytelling that, doesn't drag on a plot and characters for absolutely no reason. What do you think? As someone who works in TV, I kind of want to say it's the former, which is really depressing if that's the case. Moving on, and let's actually start with the director of the pilot episode. In fact, I believe he directed the entire series of 4 episodes, and that is Philip Barantini. And Barantini also directed Boiling Point, both the original one-shot short and a few episodes of the series that came out on BBC last year or the year before. What is time? Barantini has also directed an episode of The Responder, which is the Martin Freeman drama series, and he will be directing Enola Holmes 3. Yeah, that's 2 really intense things and one really light thing, unless Enola Holmes 3 is going to go in a whole other direction. Actually, that's a good point. When Enola 3 comes out, we should keep our eyes peeled for a one-shot take. Moving on to writer, and the series was written and created by Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham. Jack Thorne is a British screenwriting staple, and he has recently written the Netflix series Toxic Town, which came out, I want to say last month. He also wrote the feature film for Netflix, Joy, which came out the tail end of last year. And he has also written Enola Holmes and Enola Holmes 2. Go figure. I feel like he's doing Enola Holmes 3 as well. Also to mention, because I can't ever mention Jack Thorne without mentioning the series, and that is the Channel 4 series Kiri, which came out eons ago at this point, but I thoroughly enjoyed it at the time. So if there's ever a chance for me to bring up Kiri, I'm going to do it. Now, looking at Stephen Graham as a writer/creator, he did both of those things for the Boiling Point TV series, and he was also in the Boiling Point short, which, as I mentioned, one take. Like I said, this man loves a one take. He also exec'd a TV movie called Help, which Jack Thorne wrote, and he also starred in it too, which is a great segue into his acting credits. So, Stephen Graham plays the character of Eddie Miller, and I swear that this is not a Stephen Graham fan account. Not that that would be a bad thing, to be honest with you, but I don't think I've got enough material to just keep going forever. However, this is still like the 4th appearance that he's made on the pod. So I'll basically just list the other episodes that he has starred in that I have reviewed pilot episodes for, as that technically counts as his filmography. So I've already mentioned it 4 times now, but he was in the BBC series Boiling Point. He was in the Netflix series Bodies. Or was it called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies? No, that's the Gen Z spoof horror thing, right? Anyway, and very recently, as in 2 episodes ago, Stephen Graham was mentioned because he is in the Disney Plus series A Thousand Blows. Next, we have Ashley Walters, who plays Di Bascom, and Walters has also been mentioned this year. Yeah, this year, because he starred in Harlan Coben's Missing You. He has also starred in Bulletproof and Top Boy, and I'm pretty sure Walters has got his directorial debut coming very soon. Also, apparently he's in an episode of A Thousand Blows, so unfortunately that means there's no point in us playing 6 Degrees of Separation because the UK industry is in fact just that teeny tiny. Finally, to mention on the cast list is Owen Cooper, who plays Jamie Miller. And this is actually Cooper's first gig. Clap, 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 clap. Cooper will also be playing a young Heathcliff in Emerald Fennell's upcoming Wuthering Heights. Even though this is his first gig, he is definitely in good hands with Walters and Graham, who are UK acting legends. One last thing to mention, really random, but guess whose name I saw on the executive producer list? Brad Pitt. Now, unless this is just some Brad Pitt who's from Scunthorpe and not, Hollywood legend and producing mogul Brad Pitt. And if it's the former and not the latter, then apologies to Brad Pitt up in Scunthorpe, but I'm sure you get this all the time. Right, let us get into talking about the first 10 minutes of the pilot episode. And no, I won't bore you by explaining that we look at the first 10 minutes because it's the most pivotal part of the pilot, because it should convince us to watch the entire episode. We're going to skip over all of that and just get into the first 10 minutes, which goes like this. Day 1 flashes up on screen and we meet Di Bascom, who listens to a voice note from his son who's trying to pull a sickie. Bascom is with his partner, DC Frank, and it's all very casual, small talk, shoot the shit, apples, etc. Then they get a radio call that says it's time to roll out, and then we follow them and a waiting trail of police cars and vans, which let out armed police, who then burst down the door of a residential home. They're yelling, armed police, get down on the ground. And the parents are confused and they're terrified. And then the armed police bypass Eddie Miller, who tells them that he hasn't done anything wrong and they've got the wrong house. But as it turns out, they don't. They go up to the room of Eddie's 13-year-old son, Jamie, and arrest him for murder. Jamie is taken into a police van where Bascom gives him some advice and makes sure he understands what's happening to him. Mostly, Jamie is too shaken to really register anything that Bascom is saying, but 4 minutes after leaving his house, he is at the police station. And that is the 10-minute mark. And as an intro, I think it was great. I really liked how they allowed us to feel a bit settled by having Bascom and Frank just chatting about mundane, boring stuff before we then roll into the chaos. I think it was a really great scene with the Millers trying to work out what was going on. It just felt normal in a weird way. And I say this because someone gives them a form to fill out to get compensation for all the stuff that they wrecked during the search. And to be honest, I have always wondered about that. So now I know that these people do get compensation if the police bust down their door. We do also learn in the first 10 minutes that the events are taking place in Doncaster, which, for those who don't know, I'm going to say it's in the north. And the reason I say this tentatively is because somebody is either going to yell, it's the Midlands. But as a Londoner, it's all north to me. Anything above Milton Keynes is north, and you can find me on that. The last thing to say about the opening 10 minutes is that I think it's nice that we get a good long look at the accused, Jamie, which we do during a 4-minute sequence as he's transported to the station. Here is where we're really working out whether or not this small crying child is guilty or not. Moving on to character, and there are 3 to discuss. D.I. Bascom, Eddie Miller, and Jamie Miller. But before we get started on that, I feel like I should mention that, just in case you've forgotten, this is all in real time, meaning that we really only get to see 60 minutes of these characters' lives. We don't get much backstory or anything to give us context to their personalities beyond this moment of professionalism and vulnerability. But of course, that doesn't mean we can't still learn some things. So let's start with, do you know what? Let's just go in order of appearance. And that means we're starting with D.I. Bascom, and he is the arresting officer. And Bascom, I feel like I like that he's able to switch on and off from his job. And I say this because one second he's talking to his partner about how apples give him acid reflux, and he's trying to get in his 6 a day or something. And then the next second it's, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And I think that speaks to what I like about Bascom. He's not taking anything personally thus far. He is calm and he is understanding, not just to the parents, Eddie and his wife, sorry, woman that I don't know your name, but also to Jay. He understands that the situation is confusing and scary, and he tries to be as calm and professional as possible. Also, somebody, I believe it's a nurse in the pilot episode, comments that child cases are never easy. And not gonna lie, scary to think that there are so many. And I think that's also why we do see moments of almost, I want to say, compassion from Bascom. So in the van with Jamie, he is calm and gives him advice on getting a lawyer and about who he should have as his accompanying adult. He repeats things to him slowly and calmly to make sure he is taking in as much information as possible. And the situation as they're in the van does seem to sadden Bascom too, which tells us that yes, he's doing the job, but he's also human. Okay, next we meet Eddie Miller, and he goes ham in protective father mode. When the police are all up in his house with their guns, he's trying to calm his wife and daughter, but also be there for his son. We also see him cry a few times in the pilot. We see and hear from him that he wants to do a good job for Jamie as his accompanying adult. And an accompanying adult, it seems like, is somebody who is there to protect the child's best interests, who isn't something like a lawyer or a police officer. They're like a neutral third party or something like that. But Jamie chooses his dad to be that person. Eddie Miller also seems like a very practical man, straightforward. And we see that when he asks Jamie, as the two of them are alone before they go into the interview room, to look him in the eye and tell him, yes or no, did he do what he is being accused of doing? And I think this story is as much as it is to do with possible child murderers and, adolescence, etc., as well as it is about the knock-on effect of a case like this and how it affects the family. And in this case, it's specifically how it affects Jamie's dad and, how he's going to deal with finding things out about his son that he may not have known and questioning perhaps what that says about himself as a parent. I'm all for parents questioning themselves when it comes to parenting their kids, and we can table the rest of that discussion for therapy. Right, finally to mention in our character list is the child in question, and that is Jamie. Jamie is naturally terrified to wake up to guns in his face. And to be honest, he spends most of the time confused and crying or asking for his dad. We don't really get much from him because of those three things, the confusion, the crying, and the dad asking. But we do start to paint a picture of the kind of kid he is outside of this hour when the officers show the comments he's been posting on women's Instagram's accounts. Women's accounts on Instagram. Yeah, let's go with that. Now, with Jamie, you can't quite make up your mind if he did it. If anything, this shows what a good job that they did with dialogue and with casting. He doesn't say much. As I say, he's so confused. He is a kid. It's mostly, I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't remember what's going on. We see him sort of looking around as police officers are asking him questions and things, and he's not quite processing the craziness of the situation as well as the possible consequences of his actions. As I say, Good job with the dialogue and casting, and I suppose the acting too. Yeah, sure, he doesn't sound like those annoying Brit school kids, which I can't stand, that really annoying accent. I mean, if you're watching any musical with kids in London, or when kids appear in anything on TV, they just have this really annoying voice and they all talk exactly the same. And I just find it really jarring. But, but thankfully, Jamie's character, I guess doesn't talk like that because he's from up north. Yeah, it's good. That's inclusivity for you. What was I saying? Oh yes, I was talking about the acting being good. Oh, and also that the character of Jamie is just plain enough to make you question whether or not you should believe that he is in fact a scared little boy and not a guilty little boy. And now it is time for a quick interlude to see what my film and TV life has been looking like beyond the pilot principle. And you know what, for once, it is in fact just going to be my film and TV life, because I haven't touched my book in about 3 weeks. So technically I'm not reading anything, and shame on me. Moving over to film, I've actually seen quite a few bits. Clap for me. I have seen Mickey 17, which is the new Bong Joon-ho film starring Robert Pattinson and Naomi Aki. I will say that this movie is not what I expected, but that's nobody's fault but my own, because I typically walk into movies without having watched a single trailer. I might see like a second of a trailer or a poster and be like, yeah, I'm going to watch that. I don't know how I end up at the cinema, to be honest with you, now I think about it. Anyway, it's more of a comedy than it is a more serious film with a commentary on socio-political issues, except for the whole Mark Ruffalo as Trump thing, I suppose. I also watched Blue Velvet, and I watched this on, where was this? Prime Video. Didn't like it. That's all I'm going to say about it. I know people really love this film, but I just was like, you know what? I don't like when people do things for no reason. And there was no reason for that main character to start investigating whatever it is he was investigating. No. I watched The Manchurian Candidate on Netflix. That was okay. I expected it to be a different kind of movie. And by that, I mean, I expected it to be more action thriller, and it was more thriller drama, but really good concept. I saw One of Them Days in cinema recently, and that is the Keke Palmer and SZA film. And you know what? I had a good time. It doesn't bring anything new to the table, but I suppose it brings back an old favorite. Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to have to remember that one for my review. So if you like movies like Friday and, I don't know, just those like old 90s, we're just a couple of friends hanging out, this is a day in our lives in a random neighborhood type vibe, then yeah, go for it. You'll have a good time. And finally, I watched The Producers on Mubi. Yes, didn't like this one either. As it started, I knew I wasn't going to like it, but I was like, I had to sit through it because I'm trying to watch all the Academy Award winners for Best Screenplay, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Film. I mean, I'm in no hurry to do this. It's just a random side quest that I'm on. But that's basically why I sat through this movie that I wasn't enjoying as I was watching it. Okay, let's move over to TV land. And, I finished watching Paradise. I think I finished watching it a couple of weeks ago, but I think I forgot to mention it on the last episode of the podcast, so that's my bad. Yeah, great. Had a fun time. What can I say? Great series, love the mystery, love the characters. It's already been renewed for a second season and I will be sat. I also watched the first couple of episodes of Hacks. This is a HBO show which you can watch on Prime Video in the UK. Not gonna lie, not loving it. I'm a bit funny with comedy anyway, but the main character, whose name I don't know, but she's got short red hair, she's just so entitled and it really irks me. So I may or may not continue with that. If I've just got nothing on and I just need to sit down for 30 minutes, I might press play. But you know what? I think I'm 3 episodes deep, so the odds of me continuing are slim. But the reason I actually watched Hacks in the first place is because when we were doing it wasn't Emmys, it's the other one, Golden Globe. We were doing an episode on the Golden Globe nominations. and Hacks got nominated for, I think, Best Comedy. And I was like, what's Hacks? Which is basically why I chose to check Hacks out. Okay, what else? Oh, yes, 2 more to go. I started watching Reacher, as in series 1, and I binged that over a Sunday, which, not gonna lie, time well spent, no regrets. And the last show to mention is Silo. That's right, I finally done it after months and months and months of talk. I've signed up for Apple TV Plus. I've got 3 months free with EE, so I'm gonna just do as much watching as I can in that time and see how it goes. But yes, I started Silo in, I think it was January that Apple TV had their weekend of free watchage. And I basically watched like 8 pilot episodes and then watched the entirety of Presumed Innocent. And actually, after I finished Presumed Innocent, because apparently I made no other plans that weekend, I then started watching a few more episodes of Silo. So I caught back up, and yeah, I think I've got like 3 episodes left of series 1. I've got so many questions. I love stuff like this. I've just found out about what happens in janitorial, and that's all I'm going to say. And girl. Okay, yeah, I think that's everything. So as per usual, if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts about my film reviews, then you can check out justjensreviews.com, or you can find me on Letterboxd at justjen02. And of course, be sure to let me know what you're watching or reading so that I can live vicariously through you and, just feel ashamed of myself. Over on Instagram and Twitter at Pilot Principal. Okay, let's get back to Adolescence. This is normally the point where we look at what the main story arcs are that are taking place within the pilot episode, and that will likely filter on throughout the series. However, in the case of Adolescence, I feel like there's only really one main story arc, and that is whether or not Jamie Miller did it. Oh, I haven't even said what it is, have I? There's a girl who has been murdered, and they think that Jamie did it. I'm sure that was probably obvious, but because I didn't specify, I have now specified. But yeah, other than this, there doesn't seem to be any other plot points that have been outlined in the pilot episode. I mean, you could argue that perhaps D.I. Bascom's personal life could come into future episodes, ? And I only say this because at the start of the episode, he gets a voice note from his kid who wants to play sickie, and I don't know, apples give him acid reflux. Like, I don't think that's really going to be, a really deep core theme to the series. But yeah, that's why I think there's only really one story arc of whether Jamie Dunn did it or nah, and everything else will filter from this, because I suppose Jamie's dad Eddie will feature a bit more in the narrative, but as to how, we have not been shown yet. Although he does say something suspicious. It's not suspicious per se, but Eddie says something like, oh, I've only been home for 10 minutes, or I was on the night shift last night or something. And I don't know, for some reason, that made me suspicious. And we'll get into why in a second, because now it's time to fast forward to the end of episode Hook. So we are in an interrogation, and there are bare people in the room for this, which, makes sense. There's D.I. Bascom, there's DC, what did I say her name was? Frank. There's Jamie, of course. There is Eddie as his accompanying adult. And then there is the lawyer. So bare people in this room. And the police are just, doing their thing. It's a bit of a game. It's a bit of a tactical thing because the lawyer has instructed Jamie to mostly just say yes, no, or no comment. So easy questions, yes, no. Anything about what happened last night, which is when the murder took place, then he's supposed to answer no comment. So yeah, it's just a bit of a back and forth. Yes, no, not sure, no comment. Until Bascom drops the line, about CCTV, right? I said, shit. I really said, I said, shit. Let's just say that Bascom pulls up some compelling evidence that, it's not the gun, but it's definitely smoke. And the footage that Bascom shows to everybody in the room, including Jamie's dad, literally has Eddie shocked at the behavior of his son. However, as I said, the evidence is compelling and possibly shows motive, but it doesn't show the crime itself, nor necessarily confirm if Jamie Dunn did it, because he is insistent that he did nothing wrong. And at the end of the episode, it's father and son left in the interrogation room by themselves. And goodness, compared to where we began an hour ago, I think it's pretty damn deserved, because let's just say a lot has gone on. It's been an emotional roller coaster, to be honest, which is what we want to see in a drama. Moving on to my series predictions. To be honest, I'm not sure about what series structure they're going to go with. We start, if you remember, with day 1. So perhaps as it's a 4-episode series, the next episode will be day 2, day 3, day 4, etc. Or, 3 days plus a reenactment of the night of the murder. Or maybe we'll skip to day 67 and Jamie is on trial. Not quite sure, and it's just something we're going to have to wait and see. That is if you choose to watch episode 2. What I can say is that I think Jamie did it. And I can say that with confidence because this is fiction and that is my right. I also think that someone helped him get away with it. And this alludes back to what I was saying about Jamie's dad, Eddie. And he mentioned something about being on the night shift. And I don't know, but sometimes you can just tell when a throwaway line is going to be important, or a throwaway character walking by something or somewhere or someone is going to be important. I don't know, maybe I've just got this sixth sense because I've watched and interrogated so much television, but could be nothing, but also could be something. I do also think that the line that Jamie keeps saying, "I didn't do anything wrong," is fantastic, because he might believe that to be true, but he also didn't say he didn't do it. Does that mean that he did it? He just doesn't think that he did anything wrong. Crazy, right? Because it's those subtleties that keep us hooked and guessing. And yeah, as I say, I think Jamie Dunn did it. I will be surprised if he didn't do it. So I suppose for me and my series prediction, the question is, how did he get away with it, and who possibly helped him get away with it? Because, as I say, the police don't actually have evidence of him committing the murder and getting rid of his clothes. So yeah, how? Yeah, the question I think is not if, but the question is how, and why, as is always the case when it comes to murder. Okay, what's next? I feel like I've been yapping for ages in terms of what I liked about the pilot episode. I think they did the single take so bloody well. I mean, it makes sense. They're all pros at this point. The director, Barantini, this isn't his first rodeo, and neither is it Stephen Graham's. But honestly, there were some exceptionally smooth handoffs. Okay, for example, early on, we are in the police station and we are walking with an officer who goes with Jay into his cell. And then we follow this officer who walks out of the cell and then walks past D.I. Bascom. And then the camera follows D.I. Bascom instead of the accompanying officer. And then we follow him to get to the waiting Millers. And honestly, chef's kiss. And there were so many moments like that where the handoff was just so expertly handled. Honestly, the choreography of the cinematography throughout was delicious, as was the chaos of the opening when the police raided the Miller's house. I think it did a good job of setting up the theme and the structure of the single take really well. And I think everyone just acted that really superbly. There was a lot of yelling and shouting and craziness going on, and then moments of calm, and it was wild. I was hooked. And that's what you need in something like this. You need to be so hooked that you're not constantly thinking about the fact that this is all one take. Even though that's pretty much what I did, because I can't help myself. I'm always looking when I watch one take shows and one take scenes where they do the cut. Apparently, I know this is a hard pancake, but apparently there are, I think, 3 or 5 cuts in the movie 1917. See if you can spot them. Moving on to what I didn't like about the pilot episode, and it's nothing really that detrimental. I think it's just a natural consequence of one-shot shows, and that is the fact that you have to see it all. It just feels like there are some scenes that it would have benefited in terms of pacing if we had come in later and left sooner. But of course, I appreciate that's not necessarily always possible in things like this, where it's one take, you need to get characters to run from A to B to make it smooth for the transitions. And, it's just because doing something like this is such a real, living, moving, breathing thing. I suppose the waiting moments did allow us to sit with characters and watch the emotional journey. As for example, the 4-minute scene in the beginning as we are with Jamie in the van on the way to the police station. And there are other moments too as the camera stays, for example, on Eddie and we watch his emotions during certain scenes. Okay, me. Now it's time to talk about you. So I would say that if you like shows that push the boundaries of creativity, then it's entirely possible that you will enjoy Adolescence. Also, I'd say if you like a dark police drama, because let's face it, child killers, pretty dark, then that's another reason why you might like this show. And also, of course, always worth mentioning is that if you want something short and guaranteed to be solid, because you've got talent like Jack Thorne, Stephen Graham and Ashley Walters involved, then this show might be for you. Also, I think as a random side note, if you are from the US and you're interested in how our police system apparently, because this is still technically a work of fiction, works, then you also might find Adolescence interesting because they really go through the routine of charging someone for murder in the pilot episode. Now, on the flippity flip side, if you like your police dramas focused on the police, then this might not be the show for you because it seems like it's more about the family than it is about the police, which also sits with the second reason why you might not like this show. And that's because this is a drama, not a mystery. So if you prefer the whodunits and the whydunits and the checking off a list of evidence and suspects in a very genre specific way, then I don't really think you're going to get that from Adolescence. So perhaps you would want to stay clear. Adolescence kind of reminds me of BBC's Show Trial. I have done an episode on the second series because it's an anthology if you want to check that out. But essentially, we have our suspects. And so the question and the journey is more so to do with whether or not they did it and the psychology behind why we might think they did or didn't do it. And of course, the psychology behind why they themselves did or didn't do it. And if that is just too psychological for you and you want something that's a bit more of a plain police drama, then you might end up being disappointed with Adolescence the same way I was disappointed with The Manchurian Candidate. All right, I guess all that's left to do is to give this a pilot score. And drumroll, I am going to give this a pilot score of 4 out of 5. I think it's a really simple but effective pilot. We get the inner workings of a murder investigations as well as its effect on everyone involved, from the officers to the family. The single take was incredibly fun, and what I really liked about it is that it felt like more than just a gimmick. And even though I had my eyes constantly peeled for any cuts, I think you can watch this and just be absorbed in the drama without thinking about that extra stylistic decision. The reason that this doesn't quite get 5 out of 5 for me is that I didn't always feel the emotion that I knew that I was supposed to feel. And I think this is just a consequence of doing a completely one-shot episode. For me, it struggled to build up tension because everything is either on the move or still, and there's no in between. But that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the journey. Thanks for joining me this week. Will you be starting or continuing with Adolescence? Not gonna lie, I will definitely be continuing. But let me know what you will be doing over on Instagram and Twitter at Pilot Principle. And I suppose all that's left to say is that I will catch you on the next episode.